you don't know if what you're sending out is shit. That is the truth. And some of it is shit. But you have to try. Like you have to, if it's something that it's a burning desire in you and you want to do it. And I felt like I really wanted to do it. Like I had the creative side of me wanted to do it. And also the side of me that really wanted to help, other people, other women. So I was just pushy. Like people hate me on Facebook, just so you know. No, it's true. Like I'm the person that just messages everybody. Hey, have you seen my video? Hey, can you read my article? Like literally annoying, the annoying person. Again, in the book, I say this. People called me relentless at some point because I wouldn't stop, But the thing is, I think it's a quality that as women, we're kind of like told from an early age to not do that so much.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's bullshit because I think women naturally are very competitive and actually can be really ruthless in the best possible way.
Hello and welcome to Women on Top, the weekly podcast showcasing bright and brilliant women on a mission, brought to you by me, Frankie Cotton. This week, my guest is Tova Leigh. Tova is a social media influencer, content creator, writer, performer, wife and mother. Tova's open and honest video rants, articles and podcast have resonated with a huge number of women around the world. Tova uses her platforms to support and empower women by giving them a sense of belonging. She really doesn't hold back whilst sharing the raw truth on uncensored topics including motherhood, body issues, marriage, sexuality and relationships. In this episode of the podcast, we talk about how Tova monetized her blog and made it into a business. We talk about her experience of feeling stuck and confined by particular labels and being put in boxes, and how you can really become yourself and find your true voice. Tova's first book, Fucked at 40, Life Beyond Suburbia, Monogamy and Stretch Marks, will be released on the 3rd of March 2020. I hope you enjoy. Tova, welcome to Women on Top.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'd love to start by talking about blogging really as a business. Did you start with the intention to build a brand or was it a happy accident?
Totally with no intention. It was Boxing Day, 2015, I think. And first of all, let's just start this with saying I have twins, but in total 3 children in 2 years. So as you can imagine, they were, how old were they at that point? Like about 2, the twins were 2. And I was losing my shit, like really struggling. Motherhood didn't come easy to me. I was like really, I wasn't in a good place. And Boxing Day, my husband had invited a lot of people over for some food. And I was just having one of those, mornings, you know what I mean? When the kids are just like driving you crazy and they're screaming and you can't get rid. And I asked my husband, Mike, to take them out so I could just kind of have, an hour to just kind of get things done. And when they left, I had to get it out. You know how sometimes you feel like if you don't say something, you're going to explode?
Yeah.
And I had never said those things out loud. Like nobody knew how I was feeling. From the outside, people would look at me and think, oh, she's a perfect mom. She's got the perfect life. Her kids are great. Like she's got it all together, But I was like falling apart. And I sat down at my computer and I just started typing this article. I love my kids, but sometimes I wish they would just fuck off. And then when I finished, I just literally Googled, how do you start a blog? And I found WordPress. And I had no idea what a blog was. Like I just sort of, did it. And I just posted it, made a blog, called it. That's why it was called My Thoughts About Stuff, because I couldn't think of anything better. And I just thought, whatever, My Thoughts About Stuff. And that was it. That was how the blog was born.
And how was that received?
So at that point, I didn't have a Facebook page. I just had my own personal Facebook with my friends, but it was public, like it was open. Anybody could see it. And I posted the article. So I did it on the blog, and then I shared it on my Facebook page. And then later on that night, like literally later on that night when everybody had left, the kids were in bed, I sort of went, oh, I wonder if anybody's read my article. And I think it was shared by over 3,000 people.
Wow.
Like it went viral like
Yeah.
that, And I was crying that night because I was reading messages that people were sending me, messages from strangers, not even friends, like people who had seen it and shared it and whatever, were messaging me saying, oh my God, thank you for saying that. I never knew anybody else felt that way. And I never knew I was allowed to say that as a mom. And, because this whole mom guilt thing, like, how can you say stuff like that if you love your kids and all that? And yeah, and I was crying because I, for the first time, felt a little bit normal, like just a tiny bit normal, and like I wasn't alone. So then after that, I thought, okay, well, maybe I should share more aspects of my, my life to see if anybody else feels the same on other topics. Because you know how it is. You have like these things and you think it's just you. If you don't say them out loud and you don't get that feedback of people saying, actually, I feel that way, or I know somebody who feels that way, you could go away thinking that it's just you and maybe something's wrong with you, and that's a horrible feeling.
So how did you find that voice and that real honesty in terms of the content you're creating? You're really uncensored. That's the real draw to you and to your content, is how refreshingly honest it is and how it talks about these more taboo topics. How did you resist that urge to self-censor, and how have you really found such honesty and confidence in sharing your ideas and your thoughts with actually quite a big audience?
It's weird because I honestly feel like it's been a process. I think, like I said, the feedback is one of the things that has cheered me on to sort of go even further with the truth, because there was, and by the way, there's been also a lot of backlash and a lot of hate throughout the years. But for me, the voices of people saying I needed to hear that today always, were always stronger, and I always kind of like focused on them much more. So I always say, people say to me, oh, thank you for saying that. And I say, no, thank you for saying that, because that's what's allowed me to do it. But also in the process, and I've written this in the book, I don't actually think I was totally honest. It's been a process to actually reach where I am today, which I feel is very, very honest. But the honesty is not with the audience; it's with yourself. It's always with yourself, So even in the midst of like people going, the I lose my shit video and stuff like that, people were saying, "Oh my God, she's so honest. She says everything." I still wasn't saying everything.
Yeah, there was
Not really.
still holding back on something.
Always. And listen, at the end of the day, there's always an element of that. It's people who are, on social media, you get these people, oh, you're so real, you're so real. Yeah, of course, but you still choose what to show people. You still choose like how to show it to people as well. Like it's not like people are sitting in my living room 24/7 and really seeing my life day to day. So I always say, even the people you see on social media that you feel are being super real and super authentic, you just remember, take it with a pinch of salt. Like it's not 100%, because it's never 100%. But I feel that within me, I've reached a place of I'm really comfortable in my authenticity, massive word, right? But it has nothing to do with what I show publicly.
How did you stand out in a competitive space and keep showing up? So probably particularly in, I would say, the first year, but maybe you would disagree, but when you've still got, I guess, quite low reader numbers, you've not been able to monetize anything yet, what gave you the impetus to keep showing up and to keep doing it?
Yeah, there's loads of aspects to this. First of all, personally, I'm a super competitive person. So like I like doing stuff good. Like I went out and I was like, I'm going to make this like a big blog as soon as I decided it was going to be a business. So I poured my heart and soul into it. And we were just talking about this before the show. I think that a lot of people have the wrong idea when they look at blogs. They just think they happen overnight. You get a viral video, that's it, you're done. It's not like that at all. Not to say that you don't get a viral video and it makes your page bigger. Of course it does. These things help. But the truth is, it's a lot of behind the scenes work. So I was so pushy. And you don't know. You don't know if what you're sending out is shit. That is the truth. And some of it is shit. But you have to try. Like you have to, if it's something that it's a burning desire in you and you want to do it. And I felt like I really wanted to do it. Like I had the creative side of me wanted to do it. And also the side of me that really wanted to help, other people, other women. So I was just pushy. Like people hate me on Facebook, just so you know. No, it's true. Like I'm the person that just messages everybody. Hey, have you seen my video? Hey, can you read my article? Like literally annoying, the annoying person. Again, in the book, I say this. People called me relentless at some point because I wouldn't stop, But the thing is, I think it's a quality that as women, we're kind of like told from an early age to not do that so much.
Yep.
And I actually think it's bullshit because I think women naturally are very competitive and actually can be really ruthless in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Okay, like in a business setting type of thing, not to step on other people, but just to push themselves and promote themselves. But I don't think it's very acceptable, like so much in, maybe now it's changing, but my point was that I was like, I'm not taking no for an answer. Like, I'm going to get in the door. I'm going to get in the door. I'm going to get in the door. So that's what I did. And I didn't know if it was any good. And a lot of people slammed the door in my face and wouldn't listen. But then some people did. And I connected with great people on Facebook and outside of Facebook that still till to this day I'm in touch with and help me out and we help each other. That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect is there is no competition.
Yeah. In what sense do you mean?
In a sense that I regret that not everybody sees that because I think there is a lot of competitiveness on on social media and in every field. I have found that sometimes people who are in the same kind of space feel like if they help each other out, it'll take something away from them. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. And especially with women, my goal is to champion and celebrate women everywhere because I honestly feel like we're so much stronger together. And I don't think there is so much internet out there. That makes me laugh. There's internet enough there for everybody, Yeah.
Did you have to get yourself into a particular mindset in order to do that pushy work that you're talking about? Is it something that you learned how to do or did it come naturally to you?
I think it's probably something that's quite natural for me. I think I had a quite a good role model. My dad is a businessman, and I had observed him for years, and I think I took that from him. Again, because I do think it's quite masculine qualities, actually, or, well, typically. And I think I did sort of channel him in many situations. It's just like, what would my dad do? Okay, that's what I'm going to do, But I also had a lot of moments of doubt. Like, don't get me wrong. When people say no, or when people say this isn't good, or when stuff doesn't go well, you have those moments that you go, why am I doing this? Like, maybe there's no point. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should stop. Like, I had loads of moments like that. It's not easy. But you just have to keep going. My husband's, he's a comedy agent. And he's been in like showbiz for many, many years. So he's really good. He gave me a lot of advice. He said to me once, in showbiz, you're only always as good as your last role. And when you think about it, that's insane, but it's really true.
Yeah.
So you're only as ever good as your last blog, as your last video, as your last, and you kind of like have to brush it off and just move on and release it. And once I used to get very upset. Like if a video didn't do well, oh my God, I'd be like on the floor. I'd be really upset. Now I just don't really care in that way. I don't look at the numbers. I don't look at the reach. I don't engage in that side of it,
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that because once your content started going viral, on the one hand, that must be an amazing feeling to see, this big audience and people getting really engaged. But on the flip side is, well, how can I sustain this?
Yeah.
And, there must be a lot of pressure to keep delivering better and better. But the fact is, it's just never going to be linear. It's never going to be a straight line up.
Yeah. It's true.
How did you deal with that?
Well, I've had a lot of ups and downs. There was also, listen, the platforms have changed a lot. You work in the space, so you'll know as well. The platforms have changed. So what Facebook was 4 years ago is not what it is now. People coming into it now, I think, will find it way harder than it was when I was coming into the scene. And I came on the scene late. So there were people who were already doing it for 3 years before I even started, So I was late to Instagram. I was late to Facebook. Like, I think I joined TikTok on time. But like, that's about it. I was like late to every party. But the thing is, again, like now I've let go of that. But back then, yeah, it's not that I felt the pressure, but you always want to top the thing that you've done, and it can be really soul destroying actually if you focus on that. So recently I found the thing that I need to focus on, and that's what I always think about, because you know how you compare yourself to other people. Like I have that. I think it's natural. You look at other people and you go, oh, they're doing this and why am I not doing that, like it's natural, right? And I've tried different ways to cope with that, and the one thing that seems to work for me is when I go back to saying, but what is my goal? We might have different goals. And when you focus on your goal, right, then do you know what I mean? You're in one direction, you know where you're going. It doesn't really matter like if somebody else is doing this or that. Their goal might be different. So they're heading somewhere else. And for me, that's really helped. So when a video doesn't do well, I say, oh, okay, well, but what's my goal? And I remind myself what it is. And then I go, okay, so like that number actually doesn't really affect my goal. I'm still on the way,
Yeah.
and that's really helped me.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think we're all guilty of that, of comparing ourselves to other people who work in the same space. But really, once you start going down that path, it just dilutes who you are and your own brand, because you start being affected by other people's and you start changing the way, you show up or the message you say or share. So, yeah, I think that's great advice. How do you consistently create and come up with new ideas? Because creating content all the time can be exhausting, but also, do you ever get to that point where you think, right, I need to keep this momentum, but I just don't know what to say today or this week?
I think in terms of coming up with ideas, and especially because people ask me that, and they ask me that like for them, like to get advice, like how they could do it. I mean, I talk and do things about my life. And if you live your life, you're always going to have ideas because it's your life and it's like things happen. And it's funny, like it's actually quite scary because at some point I reached a point where, like something happens, you can go like, oh my God, Insta. And you like, it's an Insta moment. And I was like so disgusted with myself. It's like, no, this is horrific, So I've learned to find that balance of like something might happen on a night out with girlfriends. We'll have a really funny conversation. And I'll like, oh my God, this is great. Like this can be a really great video. So I'll make a note. I'll email it to myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'll come back to it like on Monday and go, right, is there something there? Can I write about it? I also now talk more about stuff that's happening. Like I am very interested in things like that are on the news if they're related to topics that I like to talk about. So I sometimes, so again, that gives me material because it's things that are happening, trending, or, stuff that's just in the news or whatever. The pressure, I mean, look, I feel like I've said this a few times, and it's funny because nobody's really picked up on it, like that I've said it. But sometimes I use certain type of content to how do you say, well, to increase engagement.
Yeah.
Because I want the engagement to be high, not for the sake of the engagement being high, is because I want it to, when I do something that's really important to me, I want it to reach more people. So like I'll do a video about rape culture, which is a really important topic in my opinion, and I want it to reach a lot of people. So before I do rape culture, I'll do something really fluffy and fun and silly and stupid to raise the engagement.
Yeah.
So that when I get to the rape culture, it reaches more people. So that's the pressure I feel.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And when did you start tackling more of these type of issues?
Again, like I'd say in the last probably 2 years since the crisis and this kind of like real, I just want to be me. Fuck it, decade in my 40s. Like, I'm not going to fake it anymore. Since then, I suddenly thought, why am I not talking about topics that people find difficult, like abortions or like rape culture? Why am I not talking about them? Because I was very I was very careful to, even though blunt, but really quite careful not to make an opinion about strong topics like that, because I didn't want to, how do you say, alienate? Alienate people. But then at some point I thought, do you know what? If somebody decides to leave my page because I hold a different opinion to them on a political matter or whatever, I don't really go into politics, but you know what I mean? Like a matter that's like a political matter, then that's on them. Like I can't, if this is an important topic for me, like I can't not touch it. But what I do try to do is really, really researched before I touch those topics.
Mm.
You know, those videos are not off the cuff. Like, they are well researched. I look into it a lot before I say anything, like, just to be able to hold my own and have a discussion, bring a lot of information to the table, and then not just be like, oh, I think we should do that, and not really back it up with any facts, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's important to be well informed, as you
Yeah.
say, in those situations. Also, I think comedy is such a great way to talk about things that
Yeah.
actually people don't necessarily want to talk about or know how to talk about, because laughter and that openness that it brings actually enables a lot more people to open up and to engage on topics like that. Do you see that in your experience?
100%. 100%. The other thing that I think works is if you smile.
Yeah.
Just say everything with a smile.
It
And
makes a big difference.
They don't know if you're serious. They like look at you going, is that serious?
Well, who knows?
Well, who knows? Exactly. Yes, yes.
So
Totally.
tell us how you began monetizing your blog. Did you go anywhere for advice, or did you follow your instincts? How did it work?
That I wish I could say, by the way, that I was so smart and I had like this plan. I didn't. I so didn't. I was doing the blog for a good year while still working in an office. So I was like an office manager in a building company. And I was doing 30 hours a week around the school run and doing the blog.
Wow.
And then at that point, the page was like 300,000 people. So like it was insane and I could not sustain it anymore. So I chatted to Mike and I said, look, if I'm going to try and make this into a business, I really need to just make this full time. And I wasn't bringing any money in at that point from the blog. And I sort of we looked at our savings and I said, listen, we can afford for me to not work for 3 months. And if at the end of 3 months I've made no money and this is not going anywhere, I'll that's it. I'll quit. Like I'll leave it and I'll go back to this office job. And that's what we did. And what happened was I handed in my letter of resignation, and a week later, I swear, this American agent emails me out of the blue and he goes, hi, I'm so-and-so from New York. I see your blog. I love what you do. I think I can make you money. Like, I think I can get you brands. Are you represented? And I was like, no. And that was it. Within a week, I started working. I got my first opening box. Hey, look at this.
Yeah.
I got this, you know. And I was making more money than I was making in my office job within a week. So it was pure luck. No plan whatsoever. And when it comes to monetization, again, for people who are thinking of getting into it, it's not as easy as it seems online. It's not the whole like Instagram get free stuff and talk about it and it's super easy. I don't think it works like that anymore, to be honest, because there's so many people doing it now, and brands are way more picky now and they're more savvy and all that. And also as a customer, as a person who is on social media, I don't want to see all those ads. Like, it's boring. So the first way is with working with brands. So you have a partnership with a brand and you endorse their products, basically. I like working with brands that on long-term basis.
Yeah.
So brands that I really genuinely love and I use them for a long time, and people become familiar with that brand. So I have Lilo vibrators, of course. My entire house is like boxes of vibrators. And I've got like a few brands that I work on in that capacity. And then the other way is like outside of social media, which is kind of what I'm trying to do now, because social media is not ours. My pages do not belong to me.
No.
Facebook goes under. That's it.
That's the
It's all
thing.
done.
Change the platform, change the algorithm. Everything can change.
And that's exactly what happened. Facebook's algorithm changed in the last few years, and it's just not what it used to be. You know, so everything's kind of moved to Instagram now. And that's going to die at some point as well.
Course.
Yeah. So that's where the book came in as well. And the one-woman show that I'm doing now, you know, it's trying to get out of social media and to actually also meet people in person, which has been amazing. You know, after 5 years of seeing their names, you know, on the thingy, I'm going out to Chicago, to the States next week. And, you know, these people are like coming to the show. It's crazy, you know?
Yeah. And translating that, as you say, from an online world to an offline world and actually in person is a big change.
Totally.
You mentioned it briefly earlier that you've had some backlash and some hate. How have you dealt with any negativity or trolling online? And this is obviously a topic we're talking here today only just a week after Caroline Flack and what
Yeah.
happened last weekend, which is really tragic. And yeah, I just wondered if you had any advice or you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah. I've had a lot of hate over the years, especially when I was doing the rant videos about the kids. I would get messages telling me, you know, my kids would kill themselves one day. They should be taken away.
That's awful.
Yeah. And then you've got also when I do other videos like, you know, more, I told you, like opinion pieces, like people will say, oh, I hope you get raped, you know, like all these horrible, like really horrible. And the thing is, like, they're not even, you know, sometimes you get feedback that's negative but constructive. So like
Yeah.
somebody will say, Tova, you know, I like it when you do shorter videos, or, you know, oh, I like it when you do these type of topics. Like that's okay, you know,
Yeah.
it's like a constructive, I get it. But like they're very personal, hateful messages. That's proper trolling. Like that's not constructive. That's not trying to be helpful. That's just being mean, you know? So when I first came across those type of those type of comments was actually when the Daily Mail, surprisingly, did an article about me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I stupidly went to the comment section.
No.
And I've never
go
in my
there.
life seen such horrible messages. Like I never in my life received such hate. It's devastating. Like to say that you don't get affected by that would be an utter lie. Like I was crushed. Like I couldn't believe it. Nobody wants to be hated, you
No.
know? But, and this is the big but, I have learned to not see those comments. My eye is so trained now to go through and scroll. And if I see something negative, I am not reading it. It does not exist to me. I go, and the thing with I've also learned is like when you answer these comments, A, you're giving them a stage. That you're basically inviting them to have a whole conversation with you and add more hate on hate. B, algorithm wise, so I'm going back to the algorithm, right? It reads it as a comment that's popular. It pushes it up to the top, right? So I've learned to just not engage in those comments, and I engage in the really good ones. And I could literally have 300 bad ones, one good one. That's the one that's getting my attention, you know?
Good.
And it gets pushed to the top, and that's it. I don't care. And I think also as a parent, I spend so much time telling my kids, my daughters will come home and they'll go, I had a bad day. Why? Because so-and-so called me a poo-poo head. And I'm like, oh, but are you a poo-poo head? And they're like, no. So, like, whatever.
Well, yeah, and I guess
You
some
know?
of the trolling is
Yeah.
just so ridiculous
Yeah.
and so not related to you or your
Totally.
life at all that
Yeah.
you can just say, no,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just bananas. It's
I
just
know that
crazy.
some people go out of their way, by the way, to find that negativity. There's like websites like Tattle and all those, which I had no idea what they were even, and I still don't because I've never gone on them. But I know some people actually go to read the stuff that people write about them. I don't understand why. It's like it's within our hands to not do that, you know, like. And by the way, this isn't saying that it's okay for people to troll. Of course not. You know, and social media should hold people way more accountable when they
Yeah.
do, and should actually ask you to verify your identity before you can sign up, so that you can't have all these these bogus accounts. Of course, all that is true, but I also feel like there's a sense of our responsibility.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not going back to what happened last week, because that was different. That's not online trolling. That's like the media, and I haven't
Yeah.
and I haven't had that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I haven't had a situation whereby press was releasing constant stories about me and lies and not all, I've never been in that situation. I can't imagine that being horrific and very hard to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm glad you made that differentiation because, yeah, you're right. It was a lot to do with...
Yeah.
I mean, social media and trolling has been criticised as a part of it, but certainly the tabloid press and the media and the bullying and everything is a much more complex situation than just social media. So I'd love to talk to you about what you've kind of called your mum life crisis. And you open your Amazon documentary film by saying that you don't remember who you are. You don't remember who you were before you became someone's mum. I don't have children myself, but my understanding is that this loss of identity is almost a universal experience for mums. So can you tell us a bit more about your personal experience and how your bucket list came about?
So again, kids were, oh God, this is like a few years now, 2-3 years back. and I had a bit of a health scare. That's the truth. I don't say it in the film because I didn't want the film to be about cancer. And I didn't have cancer, but I had a bit of a health scare. I had a bit of a something on my breast, which ended up being nothing. But it was the kick up the ass that I needed at that time because I was already feeling all these things, already kind of like feeling, I don't know who I am. Kids are a little bit older, wake up in the morning, look in the mirror. I'm like, I have no idea who I am. Like, who am I? I'm okay. I'm their mom. I'm a mom, but what else am I? What else am I? Just couldn't. And I felt so disconnected from so many parts of me as a person that I just completely lost, like my sexuality, like even just a connection with my body. It's one of the main things I feel that as women we completely lose control over our bodies. And by the way, that happens gradually from a very early age. You don't even have to be a mom to maybe relate to that, because even as a woman going to your gynecologist like once every few months for a checkup or whatever, you and the thing is you have to disconnect because a lot of these things are very invasive. And when you're pregnant, it's so invasive. You're just there for everybody to poke and prod, and it's like it's normal. It's life.
Yeah.
So I do believe that women disconnect themselves a little bit from their bodies. So it's like a psychological thing that we do. And especially, again, if you have a traumatic birth. And then when you do have children, they're on you, they're touching you, they're sucking your boobs, they're pulling your hair, they're wiping their snots on you. Like, your body is just not your body. Yeah. So I feel like all these things contribute to women losing a massive sense of their identity. And that's where I was. And when the health scare happened, I decided to make a bucket list of stuff that I wanted to do, that I always wanted to do. And I sort of like didn't feel like I should or could, because of being a mom or a wife or over 40 even. And each thing kind of represented an aspect of me, So I went off and did bungee jumping. I took up pole dancing. I did a nude photo shoot. I changed my hair to pink. And I went to Nepal. I did the Everest base camp trek with my brother in Nepal. I dragged my friends to Ibiza for a girls' weekend. Like, we did a whole bunch of things. And with everything that I did, I felt like I found a sort of a part, And actually, some of them were connected to each other, But by the end of it, I could sort of stand there and go, okay, we're getting closer now.
Yeah. Well, I really related to your experience when you did the bungee jump. And I mean, I've never actually bungee jumped, so I didn't relate to that bit. And I watched you going up and I just thought, I don't know how. Yeah, it looked horrific. But afterwards you said that you didn't really find what you were looking for. So I don't know what it was that you were searching for, but nothing changed in that moment. So what did anything change for you after that experience, and I guess how that journey then kind of continued?
Yeah, it's funny. The bungee jump was the first thing that I did. And I guess what it was for me, the bungee jump was, I've always really wanted to bungee jump, first of all. But like,
Why?
I don't know. I like these type of things. I did like skydiving when I was younger. Like, I like those type of extreme adrenaline, like dangerous situations. But I never in a million years thought I would do them as a mother. You feel like insane jumping off a crane knowing that you've got 3 kids. Like, that sense of responsibility, like you're just like, what am I doing? This is crazy, What it was, though, it was great, and I was like, it was a massive, like, wow, oh my God, I felt so proud of myself, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of went, okay, I'm still not it, And that's when we carried on. Like, I carried on the journey,
Did at any moment you feel different, or was it just a gradual process of...
It was a gradual process for sure. But here's the thing that I think is very interesting for me. When I was setting out to do these things, because people ask me, like, didn't you feel guilty? Like, weren't you scared? And so many women wrote after the mom life crisis, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I want to do that, but I'm so scared. What about my kids? What about my husband? What about my house? What about the laundry? Who's going to do the laundry?
Don't worry about the laundry.
Yeah, but I had all those thoughts.
Yeah.
Of course. I went to Nepal for nearly 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was on the floor. Like, if you watch the film, you saw. I was writing a will. I was taking out life insurance. I was paying off all my debts and everything, like my kids swimming and acting class, whatever, for like the next year. You know, I was booking a holiday and sending everything, like all the passport. I was going to die. Like that was me, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about that, like it's funny now, but at the time, can you imagine like how much guilt is going on in my head, like thinking I'm going to die and I'm doing it anyway because I need to do this for myself. So all of those feelings that people were writing in, I had and I went through. But the thing that I learned after doing those things was that actually nothing happened. Nothing. Everything was fine. And that I think was like so wow, you know?
Yeah. Everyone survived.
Everybody survived. It was fine.
To talk about your book, Fucked at 40, Life Beyond Suburbia, Monogamy and Stretch Marks. And it's been described as a rallying cry for every woman that has ever felt trapped in a life she didn't sign up for and can barely recognise. And, you know, we've mentioned here about motherhood, but I also think there's a lot of people that can relate to that, even who aren't mums. And you can have certain expectations or get yourself down a certain path where, yeah, you do carry a lot of responsibility and feel all those things that you've been talking about. But I guess ultimately, what freedom have you found through navigating this, what you've called crisis, and rediscovering who you are beyond the norms that society expects of women?
I totally feel like it's about labels and boxes that we're placed into. And I'm sure that men feel the same way, but I'm talking from a perspective as a woman. I have felt like I have been in a box and been labeled from being a little girl, you know, like I was very much daddy's little girl, the good little girl, and then went on and did law school, had to be a lawyer, like, and then even the idea of getting married, you know, going down the path of getting married and having a kid, you know, 2.2 kids with a minivan and the, you know, and that like the house in the suburbs, like I really kind of stopped at some point and said, it's not that I don't like my life. I love my life. And the fact that I'm very lucky is never, ever escaped me, ever. But I kind of stopped and went, I want to reassess. Like, I just want to go back a few steps and reassess. Like, I want to really choose these things because that's what I want and not because that's what I'm supposed to want, you know?
Yeah.
Like every woman's dream is to have it all. Like, is it though? Like, is it? I just want to find out. So for me, it was breaking out of the boundaries that, yes, society puts on us. And by the way, you can take this to any direction because it can also be body image, how you're going to look. You know, what size are you going to be like? Also, like, what's appropriate for you at what age? If you're 40, are you allowed to be sexy? If you're a mom, can you pose in lingerie? Like all these type of things, like just these kind of boundaries, these kind of like things that people say you can, you cannot do. So I just kind of went out and said, I'm going to choose what's right for me. And the book, the Fucked at 40, I know like people say to me, oh, is it just for 40-year-olds? I don't think it is.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I've read it and I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think it really is just a sort of a woman book, you
Yeah.
know? And hopefully women at all ages can relate to that idea, you know, of being kind of confined
Yeah,
into a
stuck or
role.
confined
into
or-
a
yeah,
role or a
definitely.
label that, you know, you've kind of been, you know, because even like that label mom comes with so many things. You know?
And would you recommend following this process to other people if they're also feeling stuck or feeling confined to, you know, make a bucket list and go out there and try doing some crazy things?
It's so funny because when Mom Life Crisis came out, and like you said, it was then made to be a film on Amazon. One of the things we're trying to do now is actually do a follow up to it, which is go and find some of the women who wrote to me and take them on their own.
Oh, really?
Mom Life
Oh,
Crisis.
how
Yeah.
interesting.
Because that was the biggest feedback. The feedback was, this is amazing. You've described my life. This is how I feel. And I would 100% do it, but I don't know how. Like, how would I start? I don't have the money. What about my kids, my husband? Like, how would I need somebody to do it with me, you know? So I kind of thought, wouldn't it be great to find like some of these women and just take them on their own kind of journey, you know, of their own mom life crisis? You know, different people can probably do it in different ways. For me, that bucket list and also having the fact that I was documenting it meant I had to do
Yeah,
it.
you're accountable.
You're accountable.
As soon as you said, yeah, I'm going to do this bungee jump. right?
Exactly. You're not going to like stand there and go, actually, I've changed my mind, you know? So I actually think being accountable is great. It helps, you know? So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all these great stories and really opening up the bonnet on how you've monetized your blog and how you've got to where you are. So thank you. But I'd like to give you the opportunity really to leave us on perhaps something impactful that you've learnt or something that you'd like to pass on to the listeners. No pressure.
No. To be honest, I say this at my show, actually, and I think it's one of the main themes in the book, has been when in doubt, seriously, when in doubt, be yourself. Honestly, my daughter gave me that advice. I was really nervous. I'm very nervous before I perform. Like I'm not a calm performer like on stage, because anything can go wrong on stage. But my daughter said to me, "But nothing can go wrong if you're yourself." And that piece of advice, I know she's 8, right? No, it's amazing, right? And I say that on stage, actually, because that just puts, it's just so true. You cannot go wrong if you're being yourself, like, honestly. So that's what I try and remind myself when I'm nervous. That's what I say to myself. And that's what I would say to other people.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for coming on Women on Top.
No,
for
pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
Thanks for listening to Women on Top, the podcast. You can join in the conversation online using the hashtag #TheWhatPod and tagging us at @TheWhatPod on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find all the details about our wonderful guests in the show notes. Support for Women on Top comes from Entail, the Webby award-winning interactive podcast platform. Entail is changing the game when it comes to podcasting through its rich visual experience. Give it a go and download today from the App Store. And don't forget to rate, review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app and spread the word. See you next week.